Well, emergency NBL now is just simply do not get bigger than this. It is Thursday night here and everyone's phone is going bonkers. So we've got an emergency panel here on the NBL now, and I can confirm the reports are true that Bryce Cotton has signed a multi-year deal with the Adelaide 36ers. So, of course, we've got to get on and discuss it all. We've got Derek Rucker. He's going to have a lot to say about it. And John Case, who's on the ground in Adelaide. And I'm going to start with you, Case, because as we said, the reports, social media has gone nuts, but we can confirm this is true. This is massive, not just for the league, but especially for the Adelaide 36ers.
Oh, without a doubt, Hall's good to be with you. And Derek, this is just extraordinary news. I had to get it confirmed by 3 separate sources before I'd actually believed this was happening, that Bryce Cotton was turning his back on the Perth Wildcats and coming to Adelaide. It's just extraordinary, and what it does for Adelaide, who, as we know, have been behind the 8 ball, so to speak, in recent years in terms of making the NBL playoffs. This is going to change things dramatically, not only on the court, but off court as well, to get someone like Bryce Cotton here. I mean, it's not unheard of. We've had big name players come here before. Rob Rose springs to mind, coming to the 36th. And of course, more recently, Mitch McCarron was probably the hottest free agent in the NBL when he came to Adelaide. But Bryce Cotton, you're talking another level again. I might have got a little bit carried away and I said arguably the greatest player in NBL history was coming here. Of course, I did mean arguably the greatest import of all time, with due respect to the great man, Andrew Gaze.
It's huge, Case. And you mentioned you had to get it confirmed. I think everybody was under that assumption too. It was very similar to the Shams news with the Luca trade. Everyone didn't believe it. And Ruck, we had to get onto you quick. I'm not sure what you're up to, but we're like, what's going on here? But as we said, it's confirmed now that we're going to see the 5-time MVP 3 more years at least in the NBL, and he's going to be in the city of churches, and the rivalry, we'll talk about that in a bit, is renewed between Perth and Adelaide.
Well, first of all, Pete, you never want to think that a league revolves around one guy, but some players are exceptional talents, and what they do on the court performance-wise, it manifests to a situation where it means more than just their performance. Bryce is an icon. He's been a cultural phenom now in the Australian sporting landscape just based on his brilliance. And also, Case, it's the character of the man. I think you alluded to that Adelaide is getting more than just a tremendous basketball player. But this is a big moment, Hools. A rather humdrum day for me here up in Brisbane, I'm not going to lie, but this has certainly lifted my spirits. Everything seems whole again in this off season. And we thought the Kings made a big splash with Delhi and KD. Boy, this is big. This is big, Case. Adelaide must be alight tonight at the prospect of having. Case, you're right. He is the greatest import of all time. And with all love and respect to Andrew Gaze, Drewy, he's knocking on the door. He's on your heels. Can you hear him?
The marketplace in the offseason about the potential to go to Japan. It looked like that was where it's heading. And I spoke to Matt Weston. His phone, he finally gave me a couple minutes, Case, when I was trying to confirm these reports. And I said, how did you get this done? And he said that Brett Brown taught him, make them say no. That's what he used to tell him, make them say no, Matty. And in the end, the conversations, he's done enough. And we've seen them acquire some big talent, put a lot of talent on a roster together, pay what they've had to get some extremely exciting players. But as we said, no one thought that this was potentially possible. And yet here the 36ers are.
Exactly right. And full credit to Matt Weston as well. Not only did he bring Kendrick Davis here last season and Montrezl Harrell, but now he's got the big fish in Bryce Cotton. And I remember Matt Weston using that quote to me last year when he signed Montrezl Harrell. He didn't expect Montrezl Harrell would be interested, but he went there, so you never know unless you ask. And as he said then, you make them say no. You've just got to keep upping the ante, and you wonder how high that ante is in terms of the folding money that got Bryce Cotton across the line. But so there's so many elements to this, but full credit to the front office staff, Matt Weston, Nick Barbato as well, and Grant Kelly, because the owner, he has piled a lot of money into this franchise, but not much return in recent years, and they are going again. And it really has shaken Adelaide up. I've had some of the highest profile sports people in Adelaide texting me since this news broke, wanting to confirm and hoping that it was true and what Bryce is going to bring to the table, not just in terms of a basketball, but in terms of the talent that he brings and the cachet that he brings off court, as I said.
And Pete, let me jump in right on the back of what Case said about Grant Kelly and the ownership group and the executive management staff, because they have shown a commitment now with this move off of the back of what they did last year to spend money. And in a 10-team league, Pete, we see how difficult it is to win regular season games, let alone playoff basketball games. If you're not willing to provide the resources and take a risk and give your fan base, a very loyal fan base down in Adelaide, I might add, if you're not willing to give them hope and justification for their commitment to your program, then what's the point? You got to go out there, you push the envelope, find the resources, and make big splashes like this. I've been known to throw out hyperbole and some metaphors from time to time, Pete, but this may be the number one free agent transaction of all time in
all
the
the front office, as you said, Case and Ruck, because talking to Matt, he said that we all were under the assumption too that he might be leaving Bryce Cotton in the NBL, and the fact that we hadn't actually heard a destination, and you spoke about on the marketplace with Damon Lowry the other day, there's still no signature on his next contract. So then credit again Matt Weston for picking up the phone saying, what's it going to take to get this done? We forget that at the start of the free agency period, probably the biggest name, because once Delhi, the domino, had fallen, was where's Flynn Cameron going to go? And they secured Flynn Cameron, and now everybody thought, okay, well, Flynn Cameron's going to go to the 3 spot. Basically, I'm assuming the LA 36ers have thought, if we get Bryce Cotton, we're going to figure everything else out, because they just don't come around too often, Case, like a 5-time MVP who's still in his prime.
He brings so much to the table, doesn't he? And it just, one question I have is about the balance of this Adelaide 36ers team now with the recruiting that they've done. They made no secret of the fact that they're going to try and shoot the lights out every night. Well, that's great if plan A works, but I hope they've got a plan B as well, because it doesn't look like it's a well-balanced lineup. But if you're adding Bryce Cotton, who cares about balance? As you say, I'm sure he'll be able to figure it out and, and certainly have an impact that hopefully we'll get the 36ers back into the playoffs, because it's been so long and it's been so lean in terms of the time here. And while we credit that front office staff of the Adelaide 36ers, one other name we need to throw into the mix is Nick Marvin, who was the man in Perth who got Bryce Cotton to Australia. Now, he's been assisting Grant Kelly in recent times in terms of building this franchise and offering advice and certainly consulting with him. You'd have to think, given the connection, that is something that has played into this. And that's certainly going to be to the benefit of the Adelaide 36ers and their fans, who have now been rewarded for continually selling out the Adelaide Entertainment Centre and bringing that every night, regardless of the team's success on the floor.
But the Perth Red Army, to see their beloved son go to the hated rivals, the Adelaide 36ers, bang, a dagger right through the heart, Hools. You get some championships from your run with Bryce Cotton, but this one leaves you wounded. And now the pressure is on Perth to try and, how do you ameliorate that fan base and make them feel good about what's to come when Cotton has made this leap? And Case, I look at the balance and I'm not too worried about it. DJ Vasiljevic is a good basketball player. He knows how to play the game. He'll fit in. Bryce, we know, is brilliant. Flynn Cameron is a guy who is shown with Melbourne United. He's willing to do what's required in the structure and be aggressive at the same time. So I like that playing profile right there with those 3 perimeter guys. Then they've got Humphreys, and they can start to round out the rest of the roster. But it just goes to show you, in basketball, one guy can change your fortune so rapidly in our league. And now Adelaide, Pete, man, you got to start thinking top 4 for them.
Little caveats we've missed in this deal, because we just get to see Bryce in a couple months' time back and commentating his games. This is a 3-year deal. So Bryce Cotton is not only going to be here for the NBL 26, he's going to be here for much longer than that. You think about talent that wants to play with a level of caliber that he is, they're going to attract a lot more. And again, talking to Matt Weston just before, he told me there's still some prizes to come. They haven't seen nothing yet. Now, when he says they haven't seen nothing yet, if Bryce Cotton's returning, I don't think LeBron's on the way, but it sounds like I know a couple of names that have been in the mix for that import 4 spot. I tell you what, if they land one of those as well, we're having a very, very different conversation in the way early predictions, Ruck.
Yeah, we'll talk about different things. Case, is there a bigger venue down there? Because I think that place is already busting at the seams. Where can they go? Because realistically, I mean, now all of a sudden in a basketball mad city that is rich in tradition, and as we've mentioned a couple of times already, the fan base is always amazing. There are not going to be enough tickets down there. Demand is going to far exceed supply. Watch the ticket sales light up tomorrow. You get to see an all-time, not only basketball, and again, when we talk about Bryce, we're just not talking about NBL greatest. We're talking about an all-time Australian.
It's a game changer without a doubt. And, memberships are already strong. And again, that's credit to the front office and Nick Barbato and his team, everything that they've done. So it's going to be the hottest ticket in town. It has been. They sold out every game last season. And, prior to that, also very difficult to get a ticket. And reading between the lines, I think in some ways this is payback to the Perth Wildcats as well, who back in the mid-'80s lifted Adelaide's blueprint for success. And Cal Bruton went to Perth and said, we're going to run and stun and have some fun. And we're going to copy what Adelaide did in 1985 and 1986 and 1987. And they eventually beat us at our own game. So there'll be some irony. And I think it's delicious in some ways, to quote one great South Australian commentator, that this is happening between Adelaide and Perth, because just when you thought that rivalry couldn't get any more fierce, I think
it's going to be so fun to watch that first game against the Perth Wildcats. We can circle that on the calendar. But again, something you mentioned at the top of this, Ruck, we're going to have the conversation continuously about the greatest import all time. But for 3 more years and potentially longer now, this is a guy who's won 3 NBL championships, 5 MVPs, 2 grand final MVPs. He's been an all-NBL first team 8 times. He's led the league in scoring 8 times. You mentioned getting closer to Gazy. If we're going to see him here for 3 years, you can probably safely assume it might be a little longer than that. We don't want to jump the gun, but we're going to start to be having some conversation if he keeps this level up.
Well, firstly, at the end of season last year, last season, the top 15, I declared that I now feel that Bryce is the greatest import of all time. He's done enough now, and I think, if you look at the records and so forth, he has surpassed Leroy Loggins in my opinion, and that's a tough judgment for me to have to make. Now, the guy is still in his prime, Pete. Physically, he looked really good, and we haven't seen any slippage. Now he gets a new, fresh start in Adelaide. This could really bolster him from a basketball spirituality perspective, where he's got a chip on his shoulder now. Now he wants to win one for Adelaide. He is driven by another goal, and that's a dangerous place to have a very talented player. Again, Case, we talk about the character of the man also, and what he's going to be able to do for the community, grassroots, all that type of stuff, and the marketability of him. I'm just not sure, though, how Adelaide is going to encapsulate all of this, Pete. How do you kind of harness all the enthusiasm and the excitement without losing focus of the real goal, which is to win basketball games? And that comes down to Mike Wells.
Rucker, Mike Wells. So, he's fairly and squarely now has got the job ahead of him to do exactly that, because that is going to be difficult in some ways. And I think you make a very good point about Bryce Cotton coming to a new scenario that is going to motivate him. Because when you're that good and you can rock up and do what he does, you need something to drive you when you're right at the top, to keep you striving, to want to get better, to want to, to sort of do better things. And I think that's going to present itself here in Adelaide for him. And while in the past, Bryce Cotton has said that he's done with the Australian citizenship scenario, maybe that's back in the mix now as well, because that certainly can't be ruled out. He was so close once before, and the whole system and the way it was done, the process, just blundered his desire to keep going with it. Well, maybe the Adelaide 36ers are going to pick that up again and maybe run with that. And that's something we can look forward to. And, Bryce Cotton coming here, as I say, it's just sent shockwaves right around Adelaide, across the sporting community. It's big news, and it's going to be big news now until that NBL season rolls around, and can't wait to see
a lot of that info in Adelaide out the next few days, Case. I think we're all excited for that, and that's why we have to jump on and do an emergency episode, because they simply just don't get much bigger than this. So a lot of the news to come out. We're going to continue to watch it. Thank you both for jumping on. This is the first NBL now I've done with a beer inside me. It's not my fault. I was just ready to watch Thursday night footy, and then this happened. So fire me later. But fellas, Ruck, Case, thank you so much. And this is going to be a big NBL 26.
Well, it certainly has changed the complexion of the off season. And again, the NBL just continues to provide the drama, the intrigue, and the entertainment. Case, congratulations to you Pete, congratulations. I see the Adelaide bias just coming out of the pores on your face. Congratulations, guys.
For it to all that bowl, Pete. It's going to be outstanding. And Adelaide.
All right, Payson, as we said, we'll leave it with you that Matt Weston, well, he said, if you like that, there's some more surprises to come. So stay tuned. Bryce Cotton, Adelaide 36's 3-year deal. NBL 26 is going to be huge.